In the name of the living God, Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. Amen. What is the one thing about yourself that you dislike the most? What a way to start a sermon. For the record, this thing you dislike may or may not be the one thing about you that drives your spouse or your children or siblings absolutely bonkers. In Loretta Lynn's obituary that I read in The Economist last week, the author revealed that Loretta obsessed and fretted and hated her entire life what she felt were her buck teeth. And this was news to me. I thought I knew everything about Loretta Lynn. It was news to me, and I just can't imagine why that would bother her. First of all, they're not buck teeth. And secondly, when that girl started to speak or sing, there was so much that might come out of her mouth, one would have never even thought to look at her teeth. What a shame that her teeth, of all the things, really haunted her. A few years ago, the English fashionista and influencer Victoria Beckham was on the cover of Vogue magazine, but on the inside pages, she confessed to hating these crippling insecurities that she developed in middle school. She even included a letter that she wrote to herself in middle school. Dear Victoria, you are not pretty or thin or the best at dancing at the Lane Theatre Arts College. You never fit in, although you are sharing your Surrey school digs with really nice girls. You have bad acne. The principal has put you at the back of the end of the year show in a humiliatingly bright purple leotard because you're too plump to go at the front. Sincerely yours, Victoria. Now, Loretta and Victoria both disliked what they perceived to be physical inadequacies. What we dislike the most isn't always physical, of course. I don't like that I can be really ungrateful at times. And I never finish anything. If you come over to the rectory or over to my office, you'll see hundreds of books that I started and I've never finished a single one. My to-do list at this point is longer than War and Peace, which I also never finished. What about your quick temper? Your irascibility, that's a great word. You know, how you explode when your spouse or sibling asks you just a simple question. What about the way you instantly get jealous when things go well for someone in your circle? What is it about you that you don't like? A recent YouGov poll asked 2,200 American adults what they dislike most about themselves. Predictably, physical things were on the list, things like weight. And holding a grudge was on the list. That, I think, was number 3. But what took the number 1 spot honestly surprised me. The number 1 thing these 2,200 adults disliked most about themselves was their job. And by the way, the respondents were educated, high-wage earners with master's degrees. Big time, to quote Peter Gabriel in the 80s hit. There is no indication in the Bible that Zacchaeus, the chief tax collector, liked his job. In fact, there's every indication that although he was highly successful, even rich, he too disliked this part of his life. Why else would a successful rich guy climb up in a tree to see a broke, homeless rabbi pass through town? Zacchaeus didn't scurry up that sycamore because he was a wee little man, as we sing. He literally found himself out on a limb because he'd reached that point in his life that he was ready to do just about anything to find deeper meaning, something beyond what money and power and influence provided. Are you looking for deeper meaning in your life? course you are. I am. We don't need to be embarrassed to admit that. In a recent interview, just before he died last week, the late comedian, Tennessee-born comedian Leslie Jordan, was asked why he believed so many millions of people watched his Instagram videos during the COVID lockdown, and why millions felt that he was so relatable. He said, quote, "I think it's because I talked about what people were really feeling." What you and I really feel most often is this: we are constantly and highly pressured, even buffeted about by what others see and think about us, and even by what we think of ourselves. In the words of Fleming Rutledge, all of us are constantly feeling out this fundamental question: how can I ever be free from anxiety about not being good enough? As a chief tax collector who literally scammed and stole from his own people to make himself rich, Zacchaeus is easy to judge, even hate. Scorned by men and despised by the people, as the psalmist writes. He was, in a word, disreputable. Very far indeed from being good enough in any way, in anyone's eyes, including his own. This is the very reason the townsfolk so quickly pointed out that Jesus had, quote, gone to be the guest of one who is what? A sinner. But thanks be to our almighty and merciful God, that while you and I rely on the outside of a man to make definitive judgments, Jesus sees what others cannot. He saw a short, yes, rich, miserable man, no doubt a sinner, sitting up in a tree, who had plenty to dislike about himself. But instead of condemnation, Jesus extended comfort. And breaking with the likes of the self-righteous Pharisees and even Emily Post, Jesus did the unthinkable. He invited himself over for supper. To this very day, right this very moment, in this very parish church, Jesus looks beyond my criminal nature, and quite frankly yours. And he still extends what the world needs most: forgiveness, consolation, and new life in his name. And those things still change human hearts today. Happy are they whose transgressions are forgiven and whose sin is put away.